Hey there, I'm Brittany Schroeder, and business and marketing are my jam. I'm here to walk you step by step through this crazy thing we call business. I'm a small town girl, chocolate eating, Diet Coke drinking mom, marketing guru, automation Jedi, and all around good time. This is your weekly dose of all things business and life, sprinkled with some fun. This is the Redefine Business Podcast. Welcome to another episode of Redefine Business Podcast. I am super excited for my guest today. Welcoming to the show, Stefanie Gass, CEO of Online Business for Christian Women. Welcome, Stefanie.
Well, thanks for having me, Brittany. Super excited to be here.
Yes, we are excited to have you. Well, Stefanie, go ahead and introduce yourself to my listeners.
Sure. So I, like Brittany mentioned, I'm the CEO of Stefanie Gass, LLC, an online business for Christian women, which is in essence a podcast that has become a full-fledged business, which is crazy, where I help women really get clear on what they're called to do in a business capacity, then start a podcast to grow an audience and then make money from that podcast. And all of that really came to be from 14 prior years of being an entrepreneur. So now I have, quotes, overnight success, right? So I'll get to that story in a minute. So I'm also a boy mom. I've got two little boys, 10 and 7. We live in the mountains of New Mexico. And it's so fun to be able to run a business from my home office. And it's just really a dream come true, because it wasn't so long ago that I just was a failing entrepreneur over and over again who had this big dream of, I don't know why, but it's always make 6 figures. Like Brittany, you and I were talking about before we recorded. I want to make 6 figures. And I did it all the wrong ways, failed over and over again until this day that for me, my faith really, really became a forefront in my life. And I was able to surrender to God. How do I grow a business that is glorifying to you instead of myself? How do I stop idolizing money and work and recognition and build something that's meaningful, that's really helping people, but that's fulfilling and really brings this wholeness, this purpose to my life, which, 5 years ago, led me to podcasting and started this podcast, like I mentioned, called Online Business for Christian Women, which has now had over 1.6 million downloads. We have a 7-figure company, interns and team members. And I mean, it could only be God. That's the coolest thing. It's like looking at the business today is like, that wasn't the dream. My dream was like, I'd like to make 6 figures one day, like in this entrepreneurial. And now it's like looking at how incredibly kind he is to help me grow into this CEO that has time. My business feels peaceful, easy, light. And it's really been through this vessel of podcasting, which is why I teach that now to the women that I serve. So that's kind of a very long, big story with lots of ups and downs all throughout it, kind of into a nutshell.
Yeah. There's a couple things that you said just barely that like resonated with me, but I love like the serving, you know what I mean? I love that perspective of, and I truly believe that, and that when you give, you receive kind of thing, but like doing it for the right reasons. And, and I do, I'm a huge believer in, it comes back to you tenfold when you are just like, I just want to help. Like, how can I help? How can I help? I've had several times in my life and in my business where when I have just like let go of like those expectations and be like, I'm just want to help people, that it really truly comes back to you. I love that.
Yeah, it sure does. And I think anybody sitting in a position of being a new business owner, we often get our priorities mixed up because we're in a place of desperation. Like the actual word need to make money, to provide, to make this thing work. And so we get so desperate that we fixate on how do I make money, which in essence, it completely derails and distracts us from how you really build a business, which is how do I serve? When we're new in business, that's the question to ask yourself. How do I serve more deeply? How do I show up and give whatever it is that I know? And then allow that to be the vessel that ultimately produces money. Because when people are changed by you with free content, they come knocking on the door. That's what happened for me in the podcast. We were 3 months in, and people started knocking inbox, do you coach? Do you coach? And I'm like, do I coach? I don't know. Sure. Like, let's coach. And that led to a 6-figure coaching business in a very short amount of time, which then led to them asking, well, how do I start a podcast? Which led to a course, right? So the service giving is the forefront that we should be focused on when we are starting businesses. And I think that's where we have it super twisted.
Mm-hmm. I agree. The other thing that you touched on that I would love to kind of talk about, we need to get into the podcasting stuff, but it just like, I'm like, yes, is
Right.
that you've been doing it for 15 years. And I
Yeah.
think that's something I struggle with is there's such a misconception out there of overnight success when it's like I guarantee you people who are saying, oh, I did it like in 30 days, I did X, Y, and Z, where it's like, okay, maybe you had some sort of result in 30 days. But for me, I agree with you. I've been an entrepreneur for, 15 plus years.
Yes.
And I've had way more failures than I have success. Like I failed and failed again, and then success and failed and failed.
Yeah.
And so even as an entrepreneur, that's a struggle I go against, is staying true to like my core values and not being clickbaity. Because I do make 6 figures. Yeah, I have done this, but it's not just, there's no easy button. And I saw a reel or something come up, and it said something about if people promise you results, but they don't tell you really how they got them, then that doesn't make them a coach. It makes them a scam. And I was like, oh my gosh, I needed to do something like that. But I just totally agree with that, where we have to be like honest. We have to like stay true to our core values. And I love that you started out just saying like, I failed and failed and failed. And it was 15 years. And then it started to happen when I changed my priorities. I pivoted, I changed, but I love that so much. And I think we need to talk about that a little bit more and remind people that social media is not what it appears to be all the time. You know what I mean? So
I think that the biggest lesson I've learned, and I'm sure you can attest to this, Brittany, is success is actually built on failure.
Mm-hmm.
Like there is no one, unless it is a scam, which they are out there and they're plentiful, that has success. And when we say success is also subjective. Mm-hmm. For me, success, how I would define that is I have a glorifying business to God that produces income for his kingdom, for my family, where I'm helping other people, and I have time for my family and time for myself. Like that's success, right? In like a little paragraph. So when I look at all the other people around me who have that same definition and ask them, what did that look like? I'm hearing, 6 years, 10 years, 15 years, a lifetime, like success that is real, touchable, tangible success. It's earned. And when we think about how we earn success, is that you've got to take one messy step in front of the other, fall on your face, learn why you fell. What did you trip on? Was your shoe the wrong size? Were you not looking forward? You were looking down. What was going on? When you get back up and you take another messy step, it's 1% better, and you avoid that pebble in the road. And so as you're taking step after step and you're tripping and you're falling, over time, you're learning how to be better because God's equipping you to lead other people through it. And there's no way that there's an equipping without you experiencing what your people have. You're going to help them go through, right? Yeah. So for me, as a business and podcast coach today, I had to fail in business a handful of times because God's like, well, I got to show you how to speak to these people who are going to go through it. Like, I'm going to bring you through these trenches so that you are equipped to help them through the trench. So just remember through Brittany and my story, and I'm 100% here for vulnerability. Like, I love when things go wrong because I know I get to share it on my podcast. I'm like, look, you guys, like, I am human. This is not easy. And even when you have success, you're still going to fail because there's always another level. There's infinitely more growth possible for you. And so just know this is part of it. I'm so excited to learn from it. You don't just hang up your walking shoes because you fell. You tie them tighter and you get back up. And the faster you get up and the faster you inventory what happened, the better this path is going to be and the faster you're going to get there. Yeah. So yeah, keep going.
Well, and I think that to be successful, it's not like I need to get really good at being successful. It's the opposite. You need to get really good at failing, because
Yes.
it's such a mindset. Like, I can think of so many times in my business where I'm like working so hard on something and then I failed, and just being completely deflated and just being like, I want to give up. I want to give up. But no, I need to use this as a learning opportunity. Like, what can I do better? And that is hard. It's hard to
Yeah.
not get like down on yourself and down on your business and compare yourself. So I love that. Let's talk a little bit about why podcasting. Before we hit
Yeah.
record, Stephanie and I were kind of talking. And I said, as a business coach, one of the things like I see with some of my clients is I feel like as entrepreneurs, the default is I need to be on social media because that is where everybody is on social media. And they
Mhm.
also think that they are comparing themselves like, okay, this person is really, really successful and they're on social media and they're doing it this way, but it doesn't always necessarily transfer as the same success, because some people just don't have charisma, or they don't want to entertain, or their audience is different. So talk a little bit more about that, what you're seeing.
Yeah. Yeah. So what happened for me, again, us going through our own experience that we're supposed to glean a lot of insight from, is my journey on social media. So I had built a really successful Instagram account and we had 40,000 followers. My likes and, were thousands. The views in stories were hundreds. And I worked incessantly to keep those numbers. I'm talking like it was probably 4 to 5 hours a day, which is really now so gut wrenching for me to verbally say, but to be so transparent with you, that's what it took. I had to do stories and reels and capture my kids doing something cute because it was going to resonate with the woman I was speaking to. I was capitalizing on my kids. And my heart, in my heart, something wasn't right. But my mind kept saying, well, you're doing the right thing because you're trying to grow your business, which is for the family. So my mind was fighting with my heart, but my heart kept saying, like, I was so tired and burnt out. I was completely addicted to my phone. I was comparing, I was negatively thinking all the time. But I thought I had to be there because people said I had to be there, because I thought that these numbers meant something. I thought that this is what was creating success for the company. And so what happened, interestingly, is my church went through a fast, like for a spiritual fast, and it was fast from something. And I felt convicted that I was supposed to fast from social media because I knew that it had become something that I was really clutching to, and that it was an unhealthy relationship at that point. And so I had already been getting off of social media every weekend for a couple of years, and I was loving that. It felt free and light. I was present, but I thought, I can't get off for good. Like, I'm a business owner. So I got off for 30 days and I told my team, because at this point we were successful. We were making a couple $100K. Like, at that point, it was like, this has to be making a difference for the revenue, right? I told everybody, no one touch it. Nobody touches Instagram. I'm not going to go there. Nobody's to touch it. We're not marketing. And I want to do a test and see what happens to the business. So we had all the metrics we still were doing email marketing. I was still doing the podcast. And at that time, maybe we were doing Pinterest. So it was nothing crazy. We were definitely not doing any kind of paid advertising at the time. And so we got off in 1 month. Interestingly, the biggest shift was in myself. I got back 4 to 5 hours a day, Brittany. So I was like a visionary again. I was putting out another episode a week on the podcast. I was meeting with more clients. I was making more revenue for the business. I was clearly thinking. I was a much more present wife and mother. I was cooking meals again. I was back working out. Like, I was doing time with God. I'm like, my life feels different. It's peaceful and free. But what about the company? So we went and looked at all the metrics. Everything went up. The downloads, the open rates, everything in revenue, everything increased. And I said, let's keep going. Let's do 6 months and see what happens. So nobody touched it for 6 months. Wow. Again, same thing happened. Business is continuing to explode. It's now been 2 years and I never went back. And I think that what I learned was so critically important, not just for me, but for the people that I lead, to tell them the reason that social media didn't actually work is because it is not evergreen. You have to get on over and over again to stay front of mind. So every 15 minutes, I would grab a story and post it so that I'm front of mind for people, but it would disappear within 24 hours. And here's the other crazy thing. Only 10% of my followers ever saw my post in the first place. And then layer on top of the fact that people are not on a social platform to consume and purchase 80% of the time. They're there to numb out and get their addiction fixed. We all know what it is. We are all addicted to social media, and it's not our fault.
Yeah.
It's the millions and millions of dollars that they put into these top engineers to basically give us that dopamine hit so that we can continue to see the paid advertising. It's all a big machine, and we are just playing straight into it. And so what happened that I think I really had an epiphany around is the podcast is evergreen. And as I started putting out more quality content, I learned podcast SEO, and I learned how to attract listeners to the show. I had somebody's undivided attention for 15 to 20 minutes. And we started making sales daily off the podcast, Brittany, where I'm like, I spent 2 hours a week podcasting this week. We made 15 sales when I spent 15 hours on Instagram and I made one. Like, there is something really crazy about this. And so we continue to do that. And over the past 2 years of being Instagram free, the business has doubled.
Wow. That's crazy. I know, even as you were talking, I'm like, you got off completely. Like, I felt myself feeling like kind of anxious, like,
yeah,
because I mean, I feel the same way where I'm like, oh, it's such a drag. It's such a drag.
But I have to be there.
Yeah. Yeah. But I totally agree with you. And that is one of the things like that I am constantly telling my clients is like, you have to have, if you're going to, I do say a social platform, but I also say you have to have a searchable platform. You have to have a blog, you have to have a blog, YouTube or Pinterest, something where people can find you, because it's true what you said is the lifespan is so much longer with that kind of content. Social media, it's buried within hours. It's buried, and people aren't going to see your stuff. So if you're putting all of your like marketing into that, then it's going to be a lot of work for not a big return. So
yeah, you have to decide like, what is success? Define success for yourself. And there are people who might define it as I need to have 1 million followers and that equals success to me. Great. Go do that, because I am not here to tell anybody that their definition of success is wrong. But for me, it was like, I would like my time back and still be highly revenue and impact producing. Yeah. So I had to shift my method to a long form outlet that I was going to marry. And I always say, pick one, marry it, go all in for 12 months. Because we're also so fickle looking for the overnight success. Like 100%. Well, podcasting didn't work. And I tried it for 6 episodes. I'm like, try 600 and then tell me it didn't work.
Yeah. Yeah. 100. Like, yeah. Oh, I agree.
Dig in and do the work, and know that it's a 12 to 24 month ramp up for something that's long form. And long form, like Brittany mentioned, is going to either be YouTube, podcasting, or blogging. And you, of course, can use a supplement like Pinterest to drive traffic backwards into any of those 3 places. And we do. And that has been such a smarter use of my time. What can I create that's going to be long form today? That's the question you should be asking yourselves. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I think the other thing that we need to be reminded of is there is not only one way to success. Right. And, because I think that people think, I mean, it seems like people, maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's my world, but it has to be social media. It has to be social media. But, like I mentioned, not everybody has that great online presence, or, they kind of struggle. And whether that is, that might be, maybe you're a good writer and you can blog, maybe, there's different ways. There's not just one way to success. There's tons of people who are making a ton of money and they're not even on social media. So if you're feeling like that frustration, know that it's not a like one and done. There's options. So Stefanie, can you give a few examples of how a business owner can use a podcast to grow?
Yeah, sure. So I like to use this example. Let's say that you decided you're going to grow a business all around macros for busy moms. And you've got this social platform and you're posting all the time about like, here's how you macro plan and here's how you meal prep. And these are ways that we track our workouts and here's how we do all these things. And of course, finding no success, because that's the story with social media. And you decide, you know what? I'm going to start a podcast. So you focus on creating long form, really quality content on the Macros for Moms podcast. And you create episodes like 3 tips to start tracking your macros, 2 simple ways to meal prep on a Sunday in less than 20 minutes a day, the number 1 hack to actually losing fat instead of muscle mass, whatever that might look like, right? Based on what your niche is. Inside those episodes, you are talking about to this potential mom, you've got her in your mind, you know what she needs and wants, you're giving away all that value. But in the episode, you market the offer that you have, whether it's, would you like to grab a 1-hour macro custom coaching session with me? Shoot me an email. Or would you like to come and purchase the Macros for Moms Method e-course? It teaches you blah, 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 blah. So we market the one intentional solution that we have for our person on the podcast. This is my number 1 way that I teach monetizing a podcast, because there's a lot of ways you can make money from a show. That's the one that's going to make you the most profit, and the one where you're going to have the most conversion on a smaller listener base as you get started. So imagine you've got 100 listeners on your show and you have a 1% conversion rate. Well, you just sold one of your $497 e-courses in one episode. Like, there's so much scalability that's available through podcasting versus, oh, I have 100 followers on Instagram. I can pretty much guarantee none of those 100 people bought from you today, if not this month, because they're not in a mindset of buying, nor is Instagram a great conversion tool. Podcasting is the number 1 way that we sell things at my company.
Yeah. Well, and I love that. And I'm guilty of that. And that's something this year that I'm like, I need to be more intentional about. That is, I'm a giveaway free content, but does it lead to a funnel? Does it lead to your sales funnel? And, I've done that before because I like to batch my podcast, but then I'll batch, I'm 2 months out and I'm like, oh, wait, okay.
What did I sell?
What did I sell? Or like, oh, now I currently, I recorded this in January and I'm in March and now I'm selling something. Like, oh crap, I need to add like an offer on here. I need to like add that in there. And so, creating these sales funnels are you talking like the topics you're talking about? Are they leading your people to an offer?
I'll give a quick tip on this before we wrap up. When you are all thinking about an offer, like to Brittany's point, if you are, I would say, less than 1,000 consistent listeners on the show, my recommendation for people is to start with coaching, because it's the fastest way to get quick conversion. You still have some bandwidth as a newer entrepreneur to do coaching, and it helps you learn what your person really, really, truly needs before you go create, let's say, like a course. Yeah. So I always have students, they coach for at least 5 people to make sure before we go move to course. And then the other big tip here is only 1 offer until you hit 100K from that offer. Then you build the next thing that builds on top of it, because a big mistake I see entrepreneurs make is they have 4 offers, 5 offers, whatever. And their buyer is actually so frozen and indecision and confused that they actually buy nothing, except maybe if you have a tiny offer, which doesn't make you any money as an entrepreneur. So 1 core offer, and letting that grow and build, kind of like really just, again, like I said, marrying not just your platform, but marrying your offer and allowing it to actually grow into something really fruitful for you before we add the next thing has been a game changer.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. Well, this has been so good. And you definitely have gotten me thinking about, I need to do this better and do this, and just inspired in so many ways. So thank you. But I like to end all of my interviews with asking my guests 2 questions. So I'm putting you on the spot here. So Stefanie, what is a pet peeve? Tell us your pet peeve.
Yes, my pet peeve is waiting, specifically on people or appointments. So let's say you're waiting on your guy to come fix the broken sink. And they're like, we'll be there at 8:30.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it's like 8:35. My eyes already twitching. I'm like, this is just so much right now. And then let alone like an hour at the doctor's office. So the waiting game really gets me annoyed.
Oh my gosh. Okay. That is me too. And I am teaching my 15-year-old daughter this, because I'm like, you have to respect people's time. You show up on time, you respect people's time. And I'm the same way. And especially if I'm at a doctor's appointment, I'm like, in my head, I'm like raging and I'm like, do you think your time is more valuable than mine? It is not. Like, you know what I
It's
mean?
not.
It is not.
Exactly.
That's what I'm mine too. Okay. So what is a simple pleasure?
Well, my simplest pleasure is a foamy latte, hot with oat milk. That's my simplest.
Oh, I do.
My
like
diva
that
pleasure is so good. My
Okay, let's
diva
hear it.
pleasure is getting a sauna, a dry sauna session in the full
Ooh.
sweat, just being able to reset, have that blank space time where I read a book or I just fully am able to relax. My favorite.
Oh yeah. It feels like a detox. It feels like you're getting all like the negativity out. Okay. I love that.
Yes.
Well, Stefanie, okay, so tell people you have something for my listeners to grab. Tell us about that, and then tell people how to get a hold of you and how to work with you and all the things.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, Brittany. This has been so fun. Friends, if you want to learn with a visual training how podcasting works to make money, I have a free training that I've put together for you. It's at podcastforgrowth.com. And it's 40 minutes and it really shows how podcasting works, all the little pieces of setting one up, but most importantly, the monetary piece, like what do you actually do to make money from a podcast, just so you can see if it would be right for you to kind of go in that direction. So again, that's podcastforgrowth.com. And then come hang out with me on my podcast. It's Online Business for Christian Women. I have over 700 episodes on how to grow, start, scale a business with God at the center. And lastly, my website is stephaniegass.com. And there's lots of free fun stuff over there.
Awesome. And we'll put all that in the show notes. Well, Stefanie, thank you so much. This has been just so good.
You're welcome. Thank you so much, Brittany.
Let's not stop the party here. Head on over to my Instagram or Facebook group, Redefine Your Business, and let me know your thoughts about today's show. I will see you again, same time, same place, next week.